In today's video, we're going to be talking about the concept of the business escalator. This is something that I just came up with in my brain. So if you Google it, it's probably not much out there, but let me explain what I mean. So if you are a creative person who also has a little bit of entrepreneurial blood in you, then most likely you're going to be trying different things in the business world to figure out what is a good fit for you. Everybody is different, okay? Everybody has different tastes, different wants, different needs, okay? But overall, I think a universal thing that we can agree on as creative people is that we want to be paid well. Sorry, it's just true, okay? We're not above it. Like, we want to be paid well, paid fairly. And we also want to have creative freedom. Creative freedom meaning the freedom to explore and try things and do new things and expand and not just do exactly what is on some sort of like creative brief, do exactly what someone else wants us to do. There is a bit of a rebellious nature to our existence, right? We want, even if we don't do anything wild, we want the freedom to do something wild, should we so choose. So I am a small business owner. I've been running my own business for pretty much the past 6 years. Okay, so I'm going to just talk you through the various different kind of combinations or steps that you might experience as you are growing your business, as you are evolving your business. All of these steps are in pursuit of that sense of creative freedom and financial freedom. They're all in pursuit of that. Okay, so let's start with step 1. Okay, this is like step 0. Step 0 is you are doing something a little bit creative, but in a corporate setting. Okay, this is like where most of us are. Okay, so let's say you are an art director or a graphic designer, or you are a copywriter, you're an editor, you're doing something creative, but it's for a company. Like, you are an employee of a company. Now, for a lot of people, this is great. And this is where you could stay for the rest of your life. For a while, like, I really thought that was what I was going to do. For example, back in the day, I lived in New York City and I worked for a few different advertising agencies. These are like the big agencies, right? One of them was called Ogilvy. I worked on the Cisco account, which does like technology. Another one was more like a boutique agency, but I worked on the New York Times account. Like, I thought this was it. I just didn't know what else was out there, but I thought, oh my gosh, I get to work with the best of the best. Like, when I worked on the New York Times account, and every single week I had to go into the New York Times building on 42nd Street and sit in a glass conference room and talk about how we were going to create like digital assets and how we were going to like bring this stuff online. Like, I thought I really was like, I've made it. Like, that, this is it. There's nothing beyond this I have no ambition beyond this. Okay. And you get to meet so many smart, interesting people, right? Especially if you're working, and I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying like, if you work somewhere where you feel like you're at the top of the game, right? And by the way, that was the third agency that I worked at. I worked at like an okay agency, then a better one, but you know what I mean? So it's not like I just like landed there. Like, I had to work for it. Okay. But if you are there and you feel like you're surrounded by amazing talent, one of the best things about this experience is that you feel like you're learning from the best. You feel like there's sort of a cutting edgeness to it. Okay. On the flip side, what a lot of creative people say, and this is what I'll sort of warn you against, is if you find yourself in a situation where you are the best person in your department, or like if you are one of one or like one of two, like you are a UX designer, but there's like one other UX designer and you're both kind of at the same level. Okay. I think for a creative, this can be really hard. Because creativity, when you're in those sort of settings, you also want a kind of apprenticeship. You want someone to teach you. Because this is where the imposter syndrome comes in. Because then people are like, okay, I like know how to do it all, right? But like, they didn't have a creative director there. So I was just like acting as a creative director, but I didn't really even like know what I was doing. So I don't necessarily have the confidence to feel like, oh, I really am like best in class because whatever, I just made it up. right? That's something I hear a lot. So there's like both sides to it, right? You can either be in an environment where you're like growing and learning and you feel like, yeah, there's always like, when you're in those sort of corporate creative environments too, it's like there's always the next thing. There's always like, well, there's this even better agency, or I can go work on an even better client, right? Or like if you worked in publishing, it'd be like, okay, well, I work at this like small upstart, but like next I could see myself going to like a Simon and Schuster. You know what I mean? There's always something juicier that you can like, there's a ladder, okay? There's a ladder. You can climb it. Okay, I'm not describing anything you don't know. Okay, that is the corporate world. So let's go on to the first stage, right? This is where your little itty bitty wings start to break free. For some reason, whether with your own force or with, you get laid off or something happens, you find yourself all of a sudden not connected to a company. You've gone freelance. Okay, this is like stage one. Stage one is like freelance. You're like, okay, you know what? I've been in the game for a couple of years and like, I feel like I do have specific skills that I can sell. So instead of like hanging out with just one company, let me go and hang out with multiple companies and just and do like a day rate or just have like an hourly rate, and I'm just freelance. Okay? If you've made it to this stage, congratulations. Making the jump from 0 to 1, as we know, is the hardest jump. Okay? If you've made it here where you're now like, okay, I'm gonna do this under my own umbrella. Okay, I'm gonna try, like, I have buddies from all over. I'm gonna get the hookup. I feel like I have one big client that's pretty steady. They signed a 6-month contract with me. I feel like I'm not gonna die, right? And I also have a couple other clients that are kind of like coming at me. So I know I have enough. I'm still not going to be making like a ton of money, but for the freedom that I have and for the lifestyle and for the ability to not be like stuck with one company, this feels good. Okay, that's stage one. Stage one for me, for example, was when I had left corporate in like 2020, and then I went and I got a freelance job for a company, right? Where I was like a freelance career coach, but I worked for them. Meaning I didn't have to do any biz dev. I wasn't out there trying to get clients on behalf of this company. There was a role, they needed to fill it. I stepped into that role. There was no other work. There was no other business development. There was no other sales that I had to do. I just like filled that role for them. Okay. Now, stage 2 is kind of the next step. That is when you're still freelance, you're still doing your own thing, okay? But then you decide, you know what? Let me try to like actually do this so that I am the one going out to get the client. For me, this is when I decided to open up my company. I called it Rose Gold Careers. And this was when I was doing one-on-one coaching sessions with clients. What was the difference? What did this mean? The main difference for me was really the marketing and promotion end of things. Meaning I needed to have a website. So I set up a simple website, and then I had like a photo of me, and then I had services. I basically had a menu of services that potential clients could come and purchase from me. Right? So mine was really simple because it was basically career coaching. But I had, for example, a one-on-one coaching session. I had a resume review. And then I had different tiers of resumes that I offered. So if you were a student, you could do a resume review for like a total resume rewrite for like $350. If you had a graduate degree, then it was like $450. If you were a VP and above, then it was like $550. So like I had different tiers of things that I offered. And by the way, those prices, I know they sound insane. I started probably 3 years prior just doing side hustle type. I barely even had a website. And I had started my resumes at $250. So this is also a note for you guys. You should price what you're worth. Okay, so in the very baby beginning when I didn't know shit, okay, and I was like, yeah, I've done like 5 resumes. I was like, I'm going to charge you $125 to $200 because like I know that I am not an expert at this at all. I'm good at it, but this is not like so I charged low, okay? Over time, over the course of 3 years, pretty much every 6 months, I would just increase the price. Why? Because I had people coming to me through word of mouth. Okay. This stage is what I'm going to call just like real grind hustle business. Like, I was not good at social media. I had my entire business was just word of mouth. Okay, I remember one time I went to a friend's wedding, and it was a friend who had gone to business school. So like everyone who was there was like fancy ass business people. And I remember sitting across at brunch from this girl, and I also felt like lame because I'd like left corporate, and now I was doing this like resume writing business, which, you know, compared to like someone working at like a hedge fund or something, I was like, like lame. And so we're at brunch, and she's like, so tell me about your business. Like, what do you do? And I was like, yeah, well, I just like help people, write their resumes and do all that kind of thing. And she's like, well, how do you market? How do people hear about you? And I like remember this moment where I just felt so, I don't know if like embarrassed is the right word. I felt like shame. I literally was like, oh, it's just like word of mouth. And like, as I said it, I knew the power of it, because I knew like for someone to recommend my service means that they were happy, and they were like recommending it to their best friend or their husband, or like, so I knew that it was really powerful and it was a steady stream of clients. But I also knew from a business standpoint that it's like, I think what she wanted me to say is like, oh, I have a TV show on Bravo. And like, I don't know. I just was so mortified in that moment. And just like realizing that it was a small word of mouth thing. At the time, I could not figure out how to make it bigger. I was like, and also at the time, I don't know that I was even ready. I don't know if ready is the right word, but I wasn't thinking like that. I was still in the stage of like building up my own confidence to be like, yeah, this is something that I'm good at. This is something that I can do. This is something that people are willing to pay me for. And in spite of all these like silly humiliations, which it really isn't. I don't even think she cared. I think she was just trying to make conversation, and I'm like sensitive, whatever. But like, in spite of all this, like I at the time felt really proud. I was like, this is awesome. I can't even believe that, someone would say like, oh, you helped my sister out and now will you help me? Like, that's an honor, because also I respect the fact that like when you're working on your resume, that stuff is so personal. It's so sensitive. It's like your entire work history on the page, and it's like mortifying to look at. So like like on a spiritual level, I was good, but on an ego level, I was shaky. So yeah, you're just in that mode where you are hustling and you are trying things, right? And I think for the first couple years, I wasn't like negative about it at all. The first couple of years, I was just like so freaking thrilled that people wanted to like pay me for my expertise. And I also felt like I had a shamanic teacher tell me one time, she was like, never underestimate the power of just doing like one-on-one coaching. Like if you did one-on-one coaching for the rest of your life, like you would make such a huge impact on so many people's lives. Like, don't look down on that. So I held that, and I was like, I am in integrity. I am, really delightfully and painfully challenged in managing these coaching sessions, right? And at the time, my business was also shifting from like really tactical stuff to more of the like coaching around like, okay, so we've done your resume, that's great, but now let's talk about like, what is it that you really want to do? Like, what kind of like dark night of the soul are you walking? Like, what are you really looking for in your next role, right? So all of that was unfolding, and I'm going to tell you, there's so many stages, but this is just stage 2, and I already was like, it already was so much to hold and so much to handle. Okay, then that is going to probably bring you at some point. You may do a pit stop here, you may not, okay? I did a very brief pit stop here, so I just want to mention it. Stage 3, this is where you feel like, you know what? Let me take this itty bitty business that I've built and try to expand it. Okay. And I think I had seen in the media and a lot of like the messaging of like girl boss, girl power, that I was like, well, what if I was able to recruit? What if I was able to recruit like amazing coaches that worked under the Rose Gold Careers umbrella, and then I could grow the business that way, right? I looked at, this is so silly, but like I looked at like real estate and I was like, well, you look at these real estate companies, you know, and they have all these women in power suits, you know, and you're like, yeah, well, you know, it's just a multiplier, right? If I'm able to attract great coaches and train them and get them, really great coaches don't even need training, but you know, so what if that is the model, right? So I dabbled in that for a hot minute and I was able to work with some amazing people. And I had a couple of resume writers that were working with me. I had a couple of like really talented coaches working with me. But I'll tell you personally, for me, I think at the time I was still navigating my identity. And for someone to love that, you have to be someone who gets real turned on by operations. And I am not. I quickly realized, I was like, yeah, this is great. We are now able to say yes to more clients because I'm not the bottleneck anymore, right? But at the same time, now I'm just like managing people. And as someone who actually is like inherently creative, this was like before I even really tapped into like my writing side and my creative side. For someone who is essentially a creative person, I found myself getting, I don't know, like not bored, but just sort of like, it wasn't the thing that I was meant to do. I was like, this is great. I can like sit here and I can manage this. And there's a part of my personality that is really into business and likes this. But I think also because I did it completely virtually, like all of my people were all around the country, I think it would have been different if it had been like, hey, we have like a cute office and we all hang out and there's like this vibe, but that just wasn't what it was, right? It was just like, great, I'm just like emailing with a bunch of people and like it didn't give me what I was searching for. And at the time, I don't even think I really knew what I was searching for. Look, some people thrive in this kind of environment where they're like growing an agency, growing a brand, like recruiting world-class talent, like setting up offices. Like I have many friends who run that agency type vibe, but for me, I just felt, I don't know, it wasn't for me. So each of these stops that I'm describing, like it may be like you may find your end destination. Like you may get to stage 2 and be like, that's awesome. I'm going to just live here. I thought I was going to just run a small coaching business for the rest of my life. I was like, that I could do that, you know? I had to keep going though to keep finding my thing. And like there may even be levels upon levels that I don't even know exist yet. Okay, I guess that's like the fun of it. So it was around this time that I realized I was like, and I think this is natural, right? At that point, I had been coaching a lot for 4 years straight of, you know, multiple sessions, multiple hour-long sessions a day. And I was starting to feel like, okay, what's the end game here? Okay, what's the end game? I knew it wasn't like, I didn't want to be more famous. I didn't want to be like, I don't know. I just was like, what is going to happen here? Like, is this going to be just the trajectory of my life? Like, you know, I don't necessarily want to get bigger. I tried that. I didn't love that. Do I do more group coaching? Like, so at this point, the question became, how do I then turn my expertise into something that's going to be more effective? Because also, if you are a teacher of any kind, right, you also have to evolve. You can't teach the same thing over and over. And so I started to dabble in like, okay, well, maybe it's teaching at scale, right? So this is the time when I started doing a lot more workshops, right? Oh my gosh, I did a Be Your Best Self. It was like it was a live workshop. It was like, we're going to meet on Zoom for 1 hour for 4 weeks, you know? And I also did like a Find Your Purpose workshop. Like I was going hard on the workshops because I also was like, you know, I was telling my husband, I was like, you know, at least this way it's like 1 hour of my time, but then I get, you know, access to 10 people. So it's like more effective and more efficient. So I think for me, something that was like kind of like tugging at me was, how do I do this in a way that makes the best use of my time? I think also underneath, probably I was burned out. And I probably was like, like how, oh my God, like I need to figure out a way to scale this, because this is not this like endless coaching. This life is not for me. And I also found myself, and this is, I'm just gonna be very honest with you guys, I found myself being sort of jealous of other people. I started to be like, wait a minute, like I just helped this person get like so much more money in their salary negotiation, but like, why am I still just here? You know what I mean? I was like, I feel like I have something in me that I have stuff to share, and I'm just not doing it. And it wasn't like playing small, because I don't think I ever played small, but it was more just like, wait, what about me? Do you ever have that moment where you're just like, wait, what about me? And I don't know, maybe it was just a pity party, but like that's genuinely how I felt. Like, wait a minute, I gotta take care of me. Like, I'm taking care of all these other people. I'm helping them be their best self. I'm helping them succeed. Like, maybe it was just time for me to take my own medicine, right? Okay, so that brings us to stage 4. This is like, maybe I should not call it stages, because it sounds like cancer. Okay, level 4. Level 4 is, this is where I started to go on social media. And the real breakthrough point for me, because oh my God, I had such a hot mess with social media, but one of the biggest breakthroughs for me was when I realized it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about, so what happened is I had just gotten off of a call with a client where I did interview prep. And I've got like a ton of little tricks and things, you know? So I was like, he was prepping for this interview and I was taking him through all these questions. I was like, imagine this, imagine all these like sort of mindset Jedi tricks that I had acquired over the years. And I got off the coaching call and I was like, damn, I have all this in my brain. And that's when I went and started to record a TikTok about it. Because I was like, well, if he's struggling with it and I just was like, here's a framework that you can use that helped him, why don't I just hit record and say what I just said to this dude? Right? And I did. And that, like, when I made it not about me, when I made it about me as a vessel for education or channeling things that would help people and just talking in like a very real way, everything changed for me. That was about this time last year when I started posting TikToks just based on helping people. I was like, oh, here's a question you might have. Try this, you know? Like, anytime I would get off a coaching session, I'd be like, that was good. And then I'd hit record and I just started doing that, okay? And that's when my channel started to grow. And it was very slow. It took me a long ass time. But pretty soon, I think it took me like 2 years to get to 10,000 on TikTok. And then once I was locked in and realized like, no, like I understand the method now of how I want to share and educate, I was locked in. Okay, so that brings us to level 4, which is you start making a little bit of money through social media. My first check from TikTok, it was $17. Like, I'm talking like it's not a lot of money, but it was enough for me to be like, oh shit, like this is a pathway. This is a way, again, to connect to, like we said in the beginning, getting paid fairly, getting paid a lot, and having creative freedom. So yeah, level 4 is like that social media moment when you get monetized and when you're like, oh my gosh, like this is actually, it's not a lot, but you know, it's like, if you are an enterprising creative person, once you see a trickle of something, you realize, wait, if I just focus on that and turn up the tap and make all these little micro adjustments, like that could give me like a glass of water a day. Like that's the realization that I had. Okay. Then you get to level 5. Level 5 is when you're like, okay, but if I were to do more of this social media thing, how does that work? Because like, okay, I could get a glass of water a day, but that's going to take a long time, and there's going to be a long time before that happens, right? And so this is also a time when you are going to probably start to get an offer or two for brand deals. Okay, these are These are partnerships, these are sponsorships. Someone being like, hey, we saw you had a video talking about this. Like, we'd love to sponsor you for blah, 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 blah. Okay. And you'll see, this is where I'd say the majority of people go. Okay, this is where the majority of people who are doing like educational content on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, this is where they're going to go. Right? It just makes sense. They're like, well, I'm making the content anyway. Oh, you want to pay me? So I just like talk about your little brand for a hot minute? Sure, fine, great. I am a crazy bitch and I have never done this. And I probably will not do this. Unless it is like a product that I actually use, I actually love, but there's like 10 of those in the world, and what are the chances? Like, it's not really gonna happen, right? I'm probably not gonna go this route very heavily, okay? The reason for that is I just feel like I'm a grumpy bitch. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I worked so hard to build this and to ideate on this and to create this. And essentially, I feel like what a brand wants to do is just like rent space. You know, and if it's like deeply aligned, okay, maybe it could be like an awesome partnership. I always tell my husband, I'm like, you know what? I'm just in the wrong, like, who I want to sponsor me is like the Four Seasons Hotel. Okay, like that's what, if the Four Seasons Hotel or if some fancy ass sushi restaurant wants to sponsor me, I'm so down. Like I will talk about the thread count. I will talk about the spicy tuna crispy rice roll, like whatever. I'll talk about it all. Okay, that to me is like, yes, how do I get there? Okay, but if it's just some company that wants me to talk about their like random SaaS AI technology, I'm like, I don't care. So why do you think the watchers of this video would care? Like, it's just not gonna happen. Okay, it's a no for now. But yeah, if you're like an all-inclusive resort in Cancun, like call me. Call me. I will hawk anything in that regard. I'm just kidding. Okay, so that brings us to the 6th level, which is, in my opinion, this is product. This is product. Okay, so essentially what we've seen, the evolution, right, is when you do one-on-one coaching, training, teaching, whatever it is, right, you are essentially trading your time, which you never get back, for money. And if you're like an incredible personal if you're Gwyneth Paltrow's personal trainer and you can charge her $15,000 a session, then like awesome. But if you're just like a normal person, like this equation gets real tough. It gets real tough. So level 6 is when you productize your knowledge into something tangible that people can buy. I wanted to do this for years. Like I didn't know how, but I was like, I just want to do it. I want to try it. I want to see it. I want to do it. Okay. So about 9 months ago, last March, April was when I did my first experiment. Let me grab it. And that is when I launched my Should I Quit journal. Okay. I thought it was hilarious to launch a product called Should I Quit? Because I was just like, that's like kind of the silliest name. Because it's so serious, like the way the font is, but then it's like something that you would just talk about with your friends. You'd be like, God, should I just quit? Like, so I loved that contrast, okay? And so what I realized was I was like, I'm making content on the regular on TikTok all day, every day. It's right. So I'm like on there. So what if I did a thing where I created content and then had this be like an accompaniment to the content? And I gave it all away for free. I mean, you can look on my TikTok, which is linked on my website, all the things. You can look and there's multiple playlists of me going through this workbook page by page by page. And I'm zooming in on the content. I'm screenshotting the content on the page because I'm like, I'm not trying to gatekeep this. And so I used this as an educational vehicle. I was like, you want to go through a transformation. You want to go from someone who's like, hates their job, nervous, doesn't know what to do next, to someone who has more clarity and focus and has like a graceful exit plan, okay? And obviously this is all being born out of the knowledge that I had acquired over those 5 years of just like coaching in obscurity, right? I put it on the page. And I designed this myself. I mean, listen, it's not like the cutest thing ever, but it's like good enough, right? And I was committed. I made 2 full playlists, which is 20, there's 28 pages. So I made 28 videos, I made 2 playlists, and I just kept going. I didn't care. And the first 5 to 6 videos that I made, oh my God, like literally it was like crickets. Like nobody cared about this at all. But I was like, well, for like maybe the one person who's going through this, I better finish it. Because I can't give up after video 6 to just be like, I didn't get engagement, so sorry. I just was like, okay, F engagement. I'm just going to keep going because I said I would, right? And then the way I sold this was I said, okay, all of the content is here. It's out there, okay? But if you want to have a beautiful, handmade, hand-bound journal delivered to your doorstep, then that is, of course, what this product is, okay? Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. I was a psycho, okay? Not only did I do the 2 times 28 videos, I did an additional 30 videos. So all in, if you look on the internet, there are nearly 100 short form videos talking about this journal. Also, I went on a ton of TikTok lives, and also I answered a gajillion questions. So, you know, people can like comment on your video and then you can like reply to the video. So I must have made a dozen or more replies, just being like someone having a question, right? Or someone, so I am not saying that this is easy, and I do think you have to be a little bit cuckoo to like go this route. And especially because I decided, this was like the artistic side of me too, I decided to actually do all of this myself. Like, I have a full-size commercial printer in my house. I have a hole punch. So basically, in the first 3 months, all the money that I made basically just went back into buying equipment to be able to keep making more journals. Because when I first made this, guys, I had my dinky little at-home HP, Canon, whatever, printer that was just printing out like a page at a time. It was like our home printer that you just like print random shit out of. And I remember my husband being like, you're gonna like we're gonna have to get a real printer. Like you're gonna print that into the ground. And I refused. I was like, no, like this printer's gonna be fine. Like we're just gonna use it until it dies. Well, like 500 copies later, like it literally, I got an error message that was like, printer no longer functional, you have used to extinction, or like some crazy language like that. And then I was like, okay, I think it is time. But it was gradual. Like all these little equipment upgrades were gradual. It was like I had the shitty printer I used it until it died, like screeched halt, died. Then I went to Best Buy and just bought like, you know, the next step up. And it was only when I was like, okay, this is actually slowing me down. I can't continue to use this like regular person equipment. I think I have to go all in, was when I made my biggest investment ever and got like my awesome duplex type professional printer. I also, listen, trust me, if you were like, Mandy, are you going to have a printing press in your freaking house? I'd be like, no, that's crazy, because it is. Trust me, I met with like multiple printers like in my physical area, which by the way, I live in Oregon, and you know, it has like historically been a place with like a lot of trees, and it's like a center for where paper is made. So there's actually like a lot of printers and like book binding equipment, like the headquarters of like multiple paper type and like binding places are like in Oregon. It's like very random. So I literally went to so many places, and I like brought my little prototype, and I was like, okay, like, you know, you guys have all this fancy equipment, and like got an estimate. Like I tried, okay? I tried to not have to do this myself, but it was like, there was always just something annoying. Like it was always just like, oh, like one company just took forever to get back to me. Like it just was like, this is not, I'm running fast. People are putting in orders. I ain't got time to just like wait for you to get back to me with a quote. Like I basically got impatient because they were not running fast enough. Okay, long story long. This was my first journal. It's like my first love. This I did exclusively for like 9 months. This is all I did. I just like sat in my house and I made these nonstop. Okay. Then last year, like around winter time, I then came out with a second journal. And this was just a very organic thing where I had like written a guide on like the 10-week plan to getting a new job. And then I was like, oh, I have this like 10-week plan article. So why don't I just film some TikToks about that? And then those started to take off, mostly because I was just giving out free education. I was like, okay, girly pops, if you have 10 weeks and you're like, I need to get out of my job, then here's what I would do step by step. And I just like laid it all out. It was just like a brain dump, right? Like talking to you like you're my bestie. So then I had my second journal, and that has also been amazing because now I was able to play with it and be like, oh, I've got multiple journals. It really started to feel like a legitimate business. Not just feel like it was. Like I was like promoting this stuff. I was growing. I'm starting this YouTube channel. I'm like, yes, like this is like a lot closer to what I envision for myself. I'm like, you know, I have to be honest, I think I'm working 10 times harder now than when I was, let's say, running my little like 3-person coaching business. But this is just so much more up my alley. And so what I would say is like, you know, sometimes these things defy logic. Like you may find something where you're just like, this makes no sense at all, but I'm obsessed with it. You know, like people told me, they were like, wait, why are you doing like a physical journal? Like that's so much, sounds like a lot of work, you know? And I would be like, I don't know, because I just feel like I like it, so other people would like it. And like, I think that people really like having something tangible in their hands, and they like having something delivered to their house, and they just like it. They like it. This has been my most popular thing ever. All right, so the 7th level, and this is where I'm at right now. And I gotta be honest, I don't know if this is gonna work or not. And like, there might be 10 more levels, like we don't know. But for right now, I'm on level 7. And that is where I am expanding the physical product with digital products. Okay, now I have done this before. Let me grab the 10-week plan journal to show you. This one's like in the packaging, it's ready to go. Okay, so this is the 10-week plan journal. And so I had, for a long time, I was like, I'm not gonna do a digital version of the Should I Quit, because I was like, I don't know, people on TikTok were already buying them and then selling them as knockoffs. So I was like, I don't want to just give those people a shortcut. And I also felt like it was something special to have it be like a physical thing. But then with the 10-week plan, I was like, you know what? I already have another journal. This is my second journal. So as part of the experiment, right, is let's see if we offer it as a digital version. Like, let's see how that goes. Okay. So that was my first foray into it, was just the digital version. A lot of people love to use GoodNotes or love to just like, they do everything digitally. A lot of people are like minimalists and they don't want anything physical, right? And in terms of results, like the digital journal, I would say, has now comprised about 20% of my sales of the 10-week plan. And so I'm like, okay, that's great, you know? So that kind of gave me the encouragement to be like, okay, what is another digital product that I can create that is unique, that is interesting, that is not crappy? And so over the weekend, I came up with the idea of the Make More Art online course. Okay. So Make More Art had actually been an idea that I'd had as a possible third journal. I actually had like notes on, like I had already sketched out like what it would be, and it just never came to be. I don't know. It literally sat in a folder called Make More Art for the longest time, and I never did anything about it. But then as I was brainstorming ideas for online courses, I kind of kept coming back to that because I was like, yeah, that's sort of like an interesting, like juicy topic. And I was so encouraged by the audience that I'm building here on YouTube, where it's like people are into it. Like people are really into the perspective of the creative and how to get closer to your inner creative, and especially from like a healing angle of like, how do I heal my wounds? Part of that is like reclaiming your voice and then being able to express yourself and having a very unique perspective as an artist, right? So I knew I was like on solid ground there, but basically what I did was I organized it like I would anything else. I came up with an outline. I came up with all of like the key talking points for each of the 5 modules, and I put it together. Also for me, I'm like, this is early. Like this could flop. I don't know if it's going to work. I think it would work, but I don't know either. So the way I'm thinking about it from a business standpoint is like, this is sort of the entry level product, right? And honestly, I feel like this is foolproof. Like you can't go wrong. Like this is like $28. I'm like, this is a great entry level product. I think it's pretty accessible given that it is accompanied by like mountains of free content, okay? And it's beautiful and it's pretty and like you get stickers. Like I think it's worth it, okay? So then I was like just thinking about like, okay, so then I think that the digital course could be kind of the mid-tier product. And so I wanted to like pack a lot of value into that. That course has 70 minutes of uninterrupted, in-depth, guided exercises, visualizations, writing prompts. Like it is like the real deal, okay? And so I'm playing with the price. Like right now I have it at like $99. But then I'm also like, but it's like an artist, so is that accessible or not? But then I was like doing research, and I was like, some people on here are charging like $800 for an online course, which I also think is, I don't know, that seems a little bit excessive. But then there's other people that have like huge followings that are charging $129 or $199. So I'm like, okay, we also need to test this to see if this is a viable option. And if I price it too low, then I don't feel like that's like a fair barometer. And plus, I want to live what I preach, which is like, you need to charge what you're worth. Because I had it for a hot minute at like $59. And I was like, yeah, but you know, I know people go on my website and they order like 2 journals and a crystal. And that order total is like $70. So I already know that they're willing to spend the money. So anyway, I think I'm getting a little bit too hung up on the money. But like, this is just like where I'm at. So I'm just like sharing with you my like honest thoughts. All right. So if you guys know what level 8 is going to be, please let me know. I don't know yet. Like this is all unfolding in real time and we'll just see. Is there a level 8? Of course there is. What's level 9? What's level 10? Like very excited to figure this out. I hope that this honest, transparent video about business strategy, growing your business, the different stages of business that you may or may not go through is helpful to you. I wish I had this. Honestly, imagine if I had go back in time and just like show this to my old self. That'd be so cool. Okay, but I hope that it was really useful to you, a little motivational, even if you just take one thing from it. Like sometimes we're not gonna hear what is being said because we're not in that place yet, and that's totally fine. So in any case, I hope you're able to get something from this. I hope that you thrive and flourish and continue to be challenged by your own business as a creative. And I love you guys so much. I will continue making content as promised, and I will see you all soon. Okay, bye!